So it's all to play for still.
I think so. Do you want to bet against us?
How come I have no sound? And I had such a brilliant intro and everything there. So there's a 1 minute of no sound, so me talking. I don't know how that happened, but you guys can hear me now. Yeah? You got me now. This is going to be absolutely fantastic for the audio podcast when this goes out later on. Testing 1 2, testing 1 2, 1 2. Can people hear me? You guys can hear me. Yes, you can. I hear a lot. Brilliant. Hello, everybody. And I was just saying that we started on time for once. But I muted myself then for the first minute. I was just saying there, guys, that this is the second one we've done today. Conor Gallagher podcast earlier on today, which was a really interesting one, and it's actually hilarious because I had Conor Gallagher and Borna Sosa on my scouting series. I had Conor Gallagher actually to do next week. I had him down as somebody that I was kind of iffy about, but I think I thought he was an interesting person to look at. And I have Borna Sosa down for Friday of this week. But we had 2 tentative links, so I pushed them forward, and I pushed my strikers out until those days. So if anybody's interested in these weird and wonderful names, then I'm going to go through the scouting series. Please come back and please look at more of these podcasts, because there will be more of them coming over the coming days as well. But I am here today to talk about Borna Sosa, and I've put together some graphs and things like that we're going to look at in a moment. This guy's an interesting player, really interesting player. His statistics just literally leap off the page. Now, as we know, sometimes, and if you watch the Conor Gallagher piece that I did previously, sometimes statistics need to be married up with what you see in the field. And there's a lot of really great things. Like Borna Sosa, if you go and watch Borna Sosa cross a ball, you'll immediately fall in love with him. Like, his crossing is like absolute caramel. It's beautiful. It is absolutely beautiful. And Stuttgart really utilised that because they had your man Kalisic, I think his name is. He's like 6'12". He created his own height measurement to see how high he was. He's just a big, massive giant up there. And they had the perfect guy in Borna Sosa to plop buns right in his head. So this guy crosses the ball absolutely fantastically, Borna Sosa. But when you look at it, his defending is what I would say with regards to his defending. He does it under duress and under protest. Is how I would. He's kind of like myself. He's tracking back and stuff like that can leave a bit to be desired, but it doesn't take away from the fact that this guy gets bums on seats, and he gets you on the edge of your seat even, because his attacking ability is just brilliant. It's really good. And we'll take a look at it in a moment. And as we're going down through some of the statistics, I'll talk to you about how he played for Stuttgart. But before we do that, I just want to give a little overview. Obviously, Stuttgart played in the Bundesliga, and they didn't have the best of seasons, I think it's fair to say, last season. They finished on joint with Hertha Berlin on 33 points, but they stayed out of the relegation playoff on goal difference. They had a goal difference of -18, which sounds bad-ish, but the teams below them were like absolutely atrocious goal difference. Like Greuther Fürth had -54, and Arminia Bielefeld had -23, and Hertha Berlin -34. So like the teams below them were leaking goals. Saying that, Hertha Berlin did concede 59 goals, which wasn't the worst actually. There was teams above them that conceded more goals, but they found it difficult to score. And when we look at Borna Sosa, he was actually responsible for 1 in 4 of all of the goals that were scored by Stuttgart. So he was very, very pivotal to their attack. And if I wanted to kind of give you a very, very lazy comparison, if you can imagine, if you can think of somebody that's just given the freedom of the left wing and is allowed just attack on that left wing, and where they create as much space as they possibly can for him out there and let him bomb forward as best he can, that's what Borna Sosa did for Stuttgart. So let me pop up a couple of graphs here, and we can take a further look into him. Has anybody here seen him play previously? Does anybody here have any opinions on him? If you want to pop in the chat, I'd love to hear it. I'd love to read it out and see what you guys think, if there's anybody here who knows about him. If not, let me try and go through some pieces that I found looking at him. So here we have my brand new stat sheet, and I hope you guys like it. I hope you find it easy to read. So on the left-hand side, I've added in here so we can see we've got Borna Sosa. He's 5'9". He's a left-footed defender. He's 24 years of age. Recently turned 24. Current transfer value we have in here, it comes from transfermarket.co.uk. They have him in there at 20 million. I think that's probably a fair enough assessment. He's not going to be with Stuttgart this year. Like, there's no way in the wide earthly world that he's going to finish this coming season at Stuttgart. I just don't think that's going to happen, because somebody's going to snap him up for the abilities that he has. As you can see, there are 1 goal and 8 assists over the course of last year. Looking at where he's played over the course of his career, he's played 61 games at left back, and he's played 14 games at left midfield. Now, that left back is it's broken. I didn't break it down between wing back and traditional left back, but he does play as a really attacking left back, a ridiculously attacking left back. You can see here, before we even get onto the statistics, it's heavily weighted to the progression of the ball, whether it be through dribbles, whether it be through passes, and so on. So he very much favors running with the ball, attacking. Kind of like Gareth Bale did when he was with Spurs before he was moved to that left wing position. And a lot of people talk about Borna Sosa in the same mold, that maybe he can move into that left wing position and that might suit him, because he does get left down. And the statistics don't look great with regards to defending here, and we'll talk about that in a moment as well. You can see here by his heat map. That he does hug the left touchline. He doesn't come too far infield. Obviously, he plays a lot of 1-2s down that line, and he's tasked with getting as far forward as he possibly can and getting that ball into the box, and he does that. He's also pretty decent on set pieces too, which is something that that contributes to some of his assists. His delivery is just fantastic. He's very like Luca Dean, actually, when you think about it. Luca Dean was brought into Aston Villa because he had a brilliant crossing rate. Luca Dean whips in a mean cross too. Don't have that lost in this whole situation. And we can see here that we've got a graph to the right-hand side, and I'm going to talk through this in a moment, because this does show the differences between Luca Dean in pink and Borna Sosa in yellow. And we're going to talk through that in a moment. But Borna Sosa is kind of like Luca Dean in the fact that he loves to go forward, and at times this season, I've kind of been critical of Luca Dean and his ability to track back. But let me tell you that if there was a situation whereby you thought that Luca Dean was slow to track back, you ain't seen nothing until you've seen Borna Sosa track back at times. It's just non-existent. He's tracking back at times, and that's not me going 2-footed in him and criticizing him. It's just it just comes right across on the tape. It comes right across on the tape when you can see it. Another bits and pieces, another few observations, should I say, that I've seen with Borna Sosa is that when he's defending, when he gets back, so if the play is in front of him, he's actually a pretty decent defender. His statistics don't bear it out here. He engages people, but what he does do is he gets caught flat-footed from time to time. Specifically, you can tell as well that he's conscious that he's a very slight player. Like, he's only 5'9", but he's a wiry type 5'9". He's not bulked out, or he's not filled out or anything. He's very slight frame. And I think if he's going to come to the Premier League, he's going to need to fill out, or he's going to need to move into that wing position whereby he can, you see him in the German league, he gets blown past at times by a winger in full flight. Specifically, if he can't stand players up. Like, there's no way he can stand. He could stand up a Kevin De Bruyne who was running at him, or even a Jack Grealish that was running at him, or someone like that, because he just isn't physically strong enough to kind of even take that kind of forward momentum and move with it and move with the player to try and keep with him. He wouldn't be able to do that. He has to keep his distance. Now, he can get aggressive as well. And when you see him, he's got this absolutely, it's almost like, how will I put it? It's almost like a schoolyard stance when and this isn't the bad thing as well, but you kind of see it. I don't know, will it make sense? But he's very low to the ground when he's facing somebody up. So he gets really down low. He's almost like sitting in a squat position as he's tracking wingers when they come to him. Excuse me. And he's actually really good at not getting dribbled past when he's able to set himself in that defensive position in around the box. He doesn't get dribbled past that often. And you can see that there, that he's got a really high, a really low rate, should I say, of getting dribbled past. He's in the top 8% for not getting dribbled past. And the majority of times is because he doesn't track back with his guys to get dribbled past. From that instance, he only kind of stands people up when he has them directly in his line of sight, essentially, when he's keeping the play in front of him. And that's just something that's not a criticism. It's something I would want him to work on if he came to the Premier League, no matter who he signs for. His production, we can see here his strengths and weaknesses to the right hand side. Strengths are definitely attacking play. Like you only need to turn on one clip of him on YouTube, and you see that this guy's got it in the attacking sense. He's all action up that left wing. I mean, all action, gung ho, marauding, pirate style, up and down that wing, no prisoners, is what he does. His progressions. He carries the ball absolutely phenomenally well for Stuttgart. He is their outlet on the left-hand side. He was their attacking outlet almost throughout their whole team this season. And they were unashamedly fed him the ball in that instance. You can see him there. From a left back, his progressive carries, he's 7.6 per game, which puts him in the top 6% in all of Europe. Progressive carry distance, once again, 166.9 yards per game, top 6% in all of Europe. Shot creating actions, top 3%. Progressive pass distance, which means the amount of the distance that he's passed the ball forward throughout the course of 90 minutes comes to 373.99 yards. Puts him in the top 11%. Progressive passes, so on. He moves the ball forward. Now, one thing I would say here is that he's a bit cavalier in his attitude of getting that ball forward. It's the first thing that just comes into his mind. And we can see it here with his pass completion at 73.4%. That can get risky in the Premier League with a 73.4% pass completion rate. And, Luka Dean's is only slightly better than that. And it's a criticism I have of Luka Dean as well, that I would like him to have a higher pass completion rate, and I would certainly like somebody like Borna Sosa, if he did come into this team or into the Premier League, to have a higher pass completion rate as well. So, all in all, you very much see the attacking style that Borna Sosa brings to the elements of his play. It's just so apparent on his tape, and it's so apparent in his statistics as well. Some of you guys have popped in comments here. So Nicholas has popped in a comment saying, I noticed he played some matches at left midfield too. I wonder with Dina having the starting left back spot locked up, if the position for left back is more appealing to someone who can also play further forward. Ordinarily, I would say yes. I think the biggest thing here, and Ad actually has come in bang on the nose here. He's absolutely ideal for somebody playing with a back three. Like, you put him in with leaving with Marcus Alonso and Azpilicueta most likely leaving Chelsea. You bring a Borna Sosa in there and play him as a left wing back, like Chelsea play. There you go. I think he'd be perfect for that. I think he'd be absolutely perfect for that. Now, I think he could play in a back four as well. And going back to your comment there, Nicholas, and I'll pop it back up there again, where you asked, is it more appealing to have a left back who can also play further forward? I think ordinarily in a team, if this was a Dean Smith team, I think that would be more appealing, because we would have played with more orthodox wingers. This team doesn't play with orthodox wingers at all, specifically with the 2 10s who we're going to be heavily relying on, to be those outlet balls when we do go forward. So I think just with this formation, I find I find this link very strange in a way. Don't get me wrong, I'll take him. I'll take him all day long for his crossing ability. And if we can sort out midfield, and maybe because Luca Dean is going to go forward as much as this guy, he's going to try and go forward, should I say, as much as this guy. But like if this guy was to come in, we would need to sort out midfield, and we would have to have more protection for our back four and midfield specifically. But I don't think the actual aspect of him playing left midfield would be the appealing part for Steven Gerrard in this, unless he is going to maybe bunk the trend that he's had at Rangers and that he had last season. And then, but to me, it just doesn't seem like he would do that considering he's got the 2 10s. But then, Fright is the spice of life, and maybe he felt that we were too one-dimensional, and I think all will be written in that. But for me, I think it's a strange link for this guy. I think this guy is a more of a strange link than somebody maybe like a Calvin Bassey or a Sergio Gomez, based on the fact that they were more rounded players from a defensive point of view and an attacking point of view. But look, as I say, we don't really know what Steven Gerrard's going to do now that Critchley's come in, whether there's going to be tweak to the setup, where we're going to play a bit more expansive, which we can do with Coutinho and Buendia, because they did play from wider areas. In Coutinho did it for Liverpool, and Buendia did it for Norwich. So it's a possibility. It is a possibility for sure. Aurelio says, would he be back up for Dina? That's an interesting one, and we will get on. We will talk about the differences between himself and Luca Dean in a moment. I think he's probably too good to come in and sit as backup for Luca Dean. I think he's probably too good for it. And what I mean by that is that he's 24 years of age. He's just broken into the Croatian squad. Well, he broke into the Croatian squad 2021. But like when you're 24 years of age, are you going to come and you're going to sit on Aston Villa's? No, maybe he does. Like never underestimate the pull of the Premier League, I suppose, is something for sure. Luca Dean has a checkered history with injuries since he's come to the club as well. That's something that needs to be borne in mind. And I do think we need a good backup to Luca Dean for sure. I probably think that this guy's probably too good to be back up to Luca Dean. Now, look, don't get me wrong. If he signs for Aston Villa, that's grand. That's absolutely fine. It's good to have good backup. But from him thinking about this from the player's point of view, I just don't see what the want would be for him, what the draw would be for him to maybe play 15 to 18 games, maybe 22 games, 25 games, maybe even including substitutions, sub appearances, to come in. And while we do need someone to push Luca Dean, I just don't. I'm not really quite sure that this guy is like for the where he is in his development at the moment. I think he needs to be playing 40 games a season and continue to his rise within the Croatian setup. But I think if he does come in, I think he will be back up to Luca Dean. Luca Dean's only here 6 months. He's only in the door himself. I would find it very strange for Steven Gerrard to buy him and bin him again after 6 months. But then again, Father Time is undefeated. So maybe Steven Gerrard does understand that there does need to be a succession plan here. And Luca Dean might only be a 2 to 3 year plan within the club too. So it would be an interesting one. He would be one of the better backups for any of those mid-range teams in the Premier League for sure. But could I see it happening? I do have my doubts based on the fact that I think he would be left back for Luke, or the backup, should I say, for Luca Dean. So let's take a little look here, and I'll come back to your comments in a moment. Let's take a little look here at the new diagram that I've added here to the stat sheets here, and what it shows here, as I say, is I've taken some of the statistics that I wanted to look at. You can see there tackles per 90, pass attempts, pass percentage, progressive passes, shot creating actions, successful dribbles, pressures, and interceptions. And what I wanted to do is get a cross section, because fullbacks are getting more and more attacking, and I wanted to get a cross section of data to kind of see where we could plot people out on the map. And you've seen these things before. You've seen these, I don't know what they're called. I'm going to call it a bullseye map because it sounds kind of cool, and I've just made that up. If that is the real name for it, well, then someone please let me know, because I'm going to call it a bullseye map. And what we can see here is Borna Sosa. I've plotted out those statistics based on, or using the yellow markers here, and I've plotted out Luca Dean's using the pink. What we can see here is very much two players that were allowed to do different things, and two players that were tasked with doing different things within their structures and within their systems. But two players who have who've got very similar skill sets as well in a lot of ways. When we look at the tackles here and the defensive side of things, so if we start at the 12 o'clock position and we go anti-clockwise, we're looking at the tackles here. So we've got tackles, interceptions, pressures. So if we look at that quadrant, that top left-hand quadrant here, Luca Dean is by far and away the better player. That's the defensive quadrant that I've put in here. And he's by far and away more adept at that. And I think that stands to reason, because Luca Dean is an up and down the field type player. There are some games where he gets caught too far up the field. More so, there's probably some passages of play than games where he gets caught up the field. And he should rightly be called out for that. And we do that. And I think that, you know, he needs to be maybe a bit more fitter, or know his limitations and not go so far up the field so that he doesn't get caught up there. And we've spoken about that before. Then next quadrant, we look at dribbles, shot creating actions. And when we look at this area, this is where Borna Sosa comes into his own. Far and away better successful dribble rate, because he attempts more dribbles. He is a better dribbler of the ball. He's been given free gratis or free rein to carry that ball forward. And what you tend to see here between the successful dribble and the successful dribbles piece here is very apparent, that shows the two different ways that the two guys are utilized. It would be very easy for me to sit here and stand here and go, oh, Luca Dean he's not a creative force within Aston Villa. Sure, look, he can't carry the ball. And that would be lies, because my eyes tell me something different, that Luca Dean is a very creative force once he gets the ball in and around the box. And we know that because he's gotten, I think it's 5 assists last season. We just know he's a good crosser of the ball. So what this shows to me is that Borna Sosa, and it shows on the tape as well, Borna Sosa has been tasked with carrying that ball into the final third and being that man who beats players, dribbles, and gets up to the byline and crosses that ball in like a winger would. That's why there's been talk of him potentially moving into that wing position. And somebody mentioned in the comments there as well, that I had mentioned there that maybe he'll turn into the Croatian Gareth Bale. That there is talk of that he will be best moving to a wing position more so than a dedicated left back position, or at least a wing back position, as he moves on towards his career. And this shows that he's got a great dribble success rate. Luca Dean doesn't. Like, Luca Dean doesn't have a great dribble success rate because he doesn't dribble that much with the ball. But what he does is he gets into those positions higher up the field, and he's the man who's receiving the ball to cross that ball in. So he's not carrying the ball into the final third. He's receiving it in the final third, and he's crossing it in, which is just as adept at anything else. And we can see that here when we look at our shot creating actions. This very bottom one here in the 6 o'clock position, the SCA, shot creating actions. The two guys are not that far away from each other, considering you would expect that because Borna Sosa carries the ball an awful lot more, because he has more progressive passes, which we can see in the what we call 4 o'clock position there on the graph. We can see here that he's so much better than Luca Dean in his successful dribbles and his progressive passes. Yet the two guys are pretty close with their shot creating actions. So that shows to me that its styles make fights for those two left backs. Borna Sosa is carrying it into those positions, or he's passing the ball forward to people in those positions an awful lot more from a more withdrawn role, whereas Luca Dean is ghosting up the left wing, receiving that ball out wide and crossing it in and creating those shot creating actions as well. So there's two ways to skin a cat, I suppose, really, when you're looking to create those shot creating actions. And once again, that's why it's so important to look at the statistics, but also open your eyes and watch the match as well. Watch a couple of games. Like I watched 5 games of Borna Sosa, and I know that mightn't sound like an awful lot, but if you pick and choose what 5 games, I usually pick 3 games against top teams within the division, 1 game against the team below them, and 1 game against the team in and around their level where they were. And that's usually how I tend to look at it. Or sometimes I look at, like, for Stuttgart, I looked at two teams that were in the upper echelon. I looked at them against Leverkusen. I looked at them against Dortmund. I didn't want to look at them against Bayern Munich because they're so far out ahead of everyone else. I looked at them against Greta Fruit because he had an absolute banger of a game that day. I think he had a hat trick of assists, and I'm not sure. Maybe I think Nicholas, you might have sent me on a Twitter video of that actual game as well. But I had watched that game previously, and he was outstanding in that game as well. And then I watched another game versus Frankfurt. I drink Frankfurt because they were in and around the middle of the table. And then I watched the game against Bochum, who finished 13th as well. So it was a nice little cross section of the teams that they played. And you can see how he plays, how Borna Sosa plays in that instance. Obviously, didn't need to look at games for Luca Dean because I've watched 20 odd games of his last season, and you know what he can do. But it's interesting that you need to do both. You need to scout from a numbers point of view because your eyes can lie to you, and you also need to scout from your a visual point of view because the numbers can lie to you too. So it's very, very important to do both. A couple of more comments there from you guys, and let's just see. So Captain K says Sosa looks interesting, but can't help feel that Calvin Bassey would be more suited for our squad. And you know what, Captain K, the more I kind of think of Calvin Bassey, the more I think he fits probably what we're looking for a small bit more. From the point of view of I think he would come in and he would learn under Luca Dean, and he would be probably more malleable to being that second fiddle, but also being able to cover at centre back as well. He may get more opportunities in that aspect than somebody like a Borna Sosa coming in and hoping to cover left wing when we don't play wing backs, or when we don't play wingers within this system as well. So potentially, as I say, I don't know what type of left back I would want. I don't know what left back I want on this team, or what left back I would like to come in and be second fiddle to Luca Dean. So yes, I can't make up my mind on who I would like to come in, and I don't. If you were put gun to my head for all the guys that we have, I'd pick Sergio Gomez at the moment just for what he has. But as I say, that could change in the morning. With regards to my feelings on left backs that have been linked. Brett Riverboat says we should be pushing our youth left back if Digne is our number one. Ordinarily, once again, I'm going to go down to ordinarily. I would agree with this one, Brett. It was actually interesting. Our youth left back is Ben Crescene. I still can never remember how to pronounce his name. I'm going to pronounce it Ben Crescene. That's what I'm going to come down on. For right or wrong, that's what I'm going to pronounce it from now on. I saw that he went back to his school recently and he presented them with a signed jersey. I just thought it was nice, and he was kitted out in the Villa gear. And obviously he came to us, I think it was from Exeter, and he had some first team experience with Exeter. And I think the club were being very, very cautious with him, not to throw him right in at the deep end, because I think that they think that he has big steps to make, and that he can make big steps within this career. And I think they think an awful lot of him. But I think maybe he's probably 12 months away from where the club would like him to be. But look, I suppose you'll never know unless you throw him in. And I think the trip to Australia, he's definitely on the plane to Australia. Without a shadow of a doubt, he's on the plane to Australia, and he is going to be down there. And I think he's going to get a chance to shine down there, and hope he does, because as you say, look, this guy has a 20 million transfer tag. If we can save 20 million there, well, then where else can we spend in the team? It's a no-brainer to promote our youth left back. But I think with somebody like that, it's kind of we need to see if he's 100% ready first, because just like going into the season with Ashley Young as our reserve left back, I think would be bad squad planning. I think going in with only Ben Crescene as our reserve left back would be bad squad planning as well, just because of the delta of the ages and the experience and so on between himself and Dean. What the drop off would be might be a bit too much. I don't know. This is Ian says, does this mean that the club doesn't have confidence in Crescene making the grade? No, I think they absolutely do. I think they do. I just think that where I come down and with probably all our reserve defenders as a whole at the moment, probably bar Kane, Kessler, Hayden. I think that's fair enough to say because he has put his head above the parapet and stuck out. I think that we're just in the situation whereby the defenders that we have coming through are just that bit young. I've said it before. Josh Feeney, 17 years of age. Svinkels, 18 years of age. Bogard, 18 years of age. I think the club want to tie them down. I think they've got good hopes for an awful lot of them, but I think it's probably 6 to 12 to 18 months too early for some of them, just based on experience. And the Premier League, like, you really need to be that good to be a young player in the Premier League nowadays. Like, Liverpool got really lucky with Trent Alexander-Arnold. But then again, when you think about it, they had balls to play him as well. So I suppose you kind of make your own look in that aspect. If you can find a system whereby you can protect a left or right back like that and let them grow, sometimes the best way to grow is through the fire, through the fire and brimstone of the Premier League. But I do think that they do have confidence in Ben Christine, and I think we will see him dotted in there throughout the course of this year. He's been on the bench a couple of times this season, and I think that probably tells me all I need to know about how highly he's thought of within the club. David Miller makes a great point here. I wonder, was this a lazy link from January when maybe he was looked at? Probably not what we needed then, considering our defensive issues. Plus, when Dino became available, it was a no-brainer. I think that has to be considered, David. I really do think that has to be considered because, to me, it's only been reported in the Daily Record. Does anybody here want to let me know? Is the Daily Record a really reputable source? If, as far as I'm aware, isn't it only available in Scotland? I'm not sure. I don't know. I know that we don't get it over here in Ireland anyway. But you got to take everything at face value. Look, I wouldn't dismiss it. I wouldn't dismiss it as completely given that it was a link from January. But I do think that it's pretty well known that Stephen Gerrard wants to get in a left back. And maybe it could be 2 and 2 together, or maybe we could be interested in somebody like Borna Sosa. But I wouldn't be surprised if we do bring in another left back and maybe spend money on one as well. When I say spend money, it could be in the teens that we spend from a millions point of view on a left back. But I suppose that's the interesting part. I think a lot of these, if we're going to be signing people, we want them on the plane before they go to Australia. We want at least the majority of them on the plane before we go to Australia. And if I'm not mistaken, we go to Australia in 3 weeks' time. So I think it might be a busy couple of weeks between midfielders and potentially left backs. And who knows, maybe a striker might come through the doors as well. But interesting one, David. Interesting one for sure. Where else do we have here? Any more comments there? So I'll come back to your comments again in a moment. But just looking once again at Borna Sosa and Luca Dean, to put your eggs in, like call me old-fashioned, but a left back, a left defender, a left-sided defender, to me, needs to be able to defend really, really well. And for me, Borna Sosa needs to bulk up. He needs to get better at standing players up, particularly in the Premier League. Now, as I said, will he sign for another team this season? I absolutely think he will. I think he's too good not to sign for a team this season, whether it's in the Premier League or not. He's been linked to quite a lot of teams. He's been linked with Man United. They're all just ran out of my head now who else he's been linked with. But it's I think maybe somewhere like if he was to go to Serie A, or if he was to go, and as I said, if he was to go to Chelsea maybe and play that wing back position, I think he'd be absolutely fantastic. Maybe go to a team like Juventus, play that left back position. A lot of Croatians end up in Serie A. Maybe he goes to a team in La Liga like a Sevilla, someone like that, who maybe utilize him to attack up that left wing as well. It would be an interesting one, but I definitely think he moves. I definitely think Borna Sosa moves, and I think that he is if he comes to Aston Villa, brilliant. Absolutely, we'll take him for sure. That shows that we mean business and we want real quality players in all positions. Let him come in, learn the league behind Luca Dean for a couple of months, learn, maybe bulk up, maybe learn how to deal with Premier League style defenders or attackers, as opposed to German Bundesliga style attackers, and see where we take it from there. But yeah, really, really interesting player for sure. Oh, we've got the bots. Great. Let me just block this user here. Fantastic. That's gone. They are indeed back. I think that's going to do it for us, guys. Is anybody else? What else has gone on? Oh, the club. The club actually announced that there was 3 new coaches, or 3 new coaches / support staff, I think is what I would call them. Come in to the youth setup. I don't know a whole pile about any of them other than Jared Nash. Jared Nash was with the Irish Football Association here, and I know he was pretty highly thought of. And he's come in, he's taken a role that I don't really even know what it entails, because I can't remember what the name of it is, but it's like professional development phase coach, which I've tried to sit down and figure it out, but I would definitely be interested in seeing maybe what that role entails. And obviously we've had is it Tony Karras come in and take over the under-23s head coaching position in Mark Delaney's stead. And I think it's good that the club are getting these positions, that there was forward planning on this. Mark Delaney, obviously sad to see him go. He was announced a couple of weeks ago. I think he only officially left his post maybe last week or 10 days ago. And the club have somebody in now, somebody who's got a pro license as well, which is good because, the more experience you can have in and around the coaching squad or the coaching setup is always good. And I have reached out to my mates in the Training Ground Guru to see if they can give me the lowdown on these guys, and you never know, maybe we might see a podcast coming over the next few days on that, because it's always good to know what caliber of coach we are bringing into the squad and into the team. So guys, I think that's going to do it for us tonight. Really appreciate everybody popping on. I'm going to be back tomorrow with Paddy. Paddy's going to be back tomorrow. We will be doing I don't know what time. I had initially said it was going to be at the evening time in our normal 9:30 slot, but I don't know. We might go a small bit earlier in the day to talk about the fixture list being announced tomorrow. So if you're around for that, I would love your time. I also have another one of my scouting series. I have a striker coming in my scouting series tomorrow. So if you guys are interested in semi-obscure, I won't even call it obscure striker. This guy is people like West Ham, Manchester United have been sniffing around this guy. He's 26-year-old. He's Senegalese, and I won't go much further than that. So you'll have to tune in tomorrow for that. It'd be nice if you guys could give that a watch. Also, if you haven't seen the Conor Gallagher or the Guido Rodriguez podcasts, I'd really appreciate if you could look at those as well. I know somebody mentioned here, asked the comment about would I like, who if I had to pick between Sangare or Guido Rodriguez, who would I prefer? Guido Rodriguez all day long. I just want to see people go 10 foot in the air. It's do you remember, in Game of Thrones where you've got that kid who likes to see people thrown out of the they live up in the castle all the way, big tall castle, and there's a hole in the ground. They throw people out into the hole in the ground, and he goes, make the bad guy fly. That's like Guido Rodriguez, except the opposite way. He kicks him up into the air. And I'm like that child. I just get giddy when I see that happen. So for me, it's going to be Guido Rodriguez all day long. Although Sangare is a fantastic player too. So if you guys haven't seen that on Guido Rodriguez and on Conor Gallagher, I'd appreciate it if you could give it a watch. Thanks so much, though, for everything you do for the podcast. Thumbs up before you leave. And if you aren't already a subscriber on the channel, I'd really appreciate it if you consider subscribing to us as well. Also, before we go, some news. Our website is going to be updated again. Some of you guys have asked for some merchandise. You've seen us wear some t-shirts and hats and things like that. You've seen us drinking out of some mugs. We're looking at getting that sorted, and I should have some news probably even over the weekend on that to see if we can make that happen. But either way, the website we will be likely starting up that website again, so keep an eye out for that, and we'll have more news as it comes. But guys, I've taken up too much of your time on a Wednesday night. It's gone past 10 o'clock. I'm sure I've got you over the worst of Love Island, and now you can go back and regain control of the television again, so that you can watch what you want to watch now that Love Island is over and I've gotten you out of that hole. So thanks very much for everything. We'll see you tomorrow. Stay safe, stay healthy, and all that's left to say is up to Villa.